Mike Boddicker, pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. In baseball, when the umpire calls you out, you just wait for your next at-bat. But in hunting, one mistake might be end of the game forever. To learn about hunter responsibility, wildlife management, and safe gun handling, enroll in a hunter education class. Let's strike out unsafe hunters in Iowa.
This is 5 TV.
It may be the worst of times for the National Football League, but it is the absolute best of times for Major League Baseball. We're at Tiger Stadium in Detroit on a gorgeous fall day with bright sunshine, clear skies, and a full house. And the standings in the American League East tell the tale. A win by Detroit today, and the Tigers go to the playoffs. A win by the Blue Jays today, and Toronto forces a one-game playoff tomorrow. ABC Sports, the network of the 1987 World Series, on this final day of the regular season, presents Sunday afternoon baseball, the big one in the American League East, the Toronto Blue Jays and the Detroit Tigers. On Friday night, Doyle Alexander pitched the Tigers to a win, and the two teams were tied for first. Then yesterday in the 12th inning, Alan Trammell grounded one through Manny Lee's legs to put the Tigers in first. They can clinch the East today. Hi, everyone. I'm Al Michaels. Welcome to Tiger Stadium. A schedule maker's dream comes true. Two top teams battling with everything at stake. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, of course, it is an absolute do-or-die situation today. They must win to force a one-game playoff tomorrow. The Tigers have a little more leeway because they lead by a game in the American League East. If they lose, it still sets up that one-game playoff at 3 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. If they win, then they take tomorrow off and fly into Minnesota to begin the American League Championship Series on Wednesday. The Toronto Blue Jays are staggering. They haven't won a game since a week ago yesterday. They have lost 6 straight, including the first 2 games in this series. And this wraps up 7 meetings over the last week and a half between these two teams. Toronto won the first 3. Detroit has won the last 3, and every game has been decided by 1 run. We talked to the managers earlier. Here's what they said. Sparky Anderson of the Tigers, Jimmy Williams of the Blue Jays. Sparky, because you do have a certain amount of leeway, you can't afford a loss. Will you manage this game any differently today than you would if this was the one game that determined the championship?
No, Al, you know me. You were with me long enough. I'll only manage the baseball game that's here today. I'm not smart enough. I always kid Gibson. I say, you know, when you got a 27 IQ, it's pretty hard to operate. I only know how to manage the game that's at hand, and all that other stuff to me is I call eyewash.
Your club obviously needing a victory today and in a tailspin right now. Will you say anything differently before the game? Will there be a clubhouse meeting today?
I'm not big on clubhouse meetings. I don't think we need that type of a meeting today to get up for this game. They faced Tanana enough times to know how he pitches to them, and I just, you know, let's relax, go out and play and have fun and let the chips fall where we're going to fall.
Joined now by Jim Palmer. You don't have to be an amateur psychiatrist or psychologist to tell the difference between those two guys. Sparky is loose. He can afford a loss. Jimmy Williams, you can read his face. He knows he has to win. But the one thing the Blue Jays have going for them today is the better pitcher.
Well, it is. Jimmy Key is one of the outstanding pitchers in the American League. He's trying to get some more votes for Cy Young, leading league in ERA. And if there's ever a great, like a dress rehearsal, Al, for a big game, it was watching Mike Flanagan. Yesterday, Mike Flanagan pitched 11 innings, only 8 hits, 9 strikeouts. So he knows what he has to do, and he's capable of doing that. On the other hand, we have Frank Tanana. Tremendous success against the Blue Jay because his strength, which is changing speeds, getting the hitters out with curveballs and changeups, is the Toronto's weakness, and that has been their weakness in the 6-game losing streak. They have scored 16 runs in 6 games. So for them to win today, Key has to pitch well, but they have to put some runs on the scoreboard, and if they do, they'll take this crowd right out of the game.
Pitchers should have the advantage early, in as much as the game will be played with a shadow line extending out toward right field for the first hour and a half. Let me turn now to Tim McCarver. Talk about being down on the field and in the clubhouse before the games. What sort of feel do you get as to the moods of these two teams?
Well, I guess, Al, the expression choose your poison, I guess it would apply today that you could choose your passion. Because think about how many emotions are touched today. Apprehensiveness, certainly, just all sorts of things, even fear. Talking to the players on the field before the ball game, a lot of them said they couldn't sleep last night. A lot of them had trouble eating. Think about the Toronto Blue Jays. It's not necessarily the fact that they have to win 2 ball games in a row, but it's how they are, how their mental attitude is today going into this ball game. After all, they've lost 6 in a row. On the other hand, the Detroit Tigers, with the best record in baseball today, actually could lose the American League East if Toronto wins today and tomorrow.
Gorgeous day, full house. As the song says, this is it. Detroit against Toronto, the final day of the regular season. ABC's Sunday Afternoon Baseball is brought to you by Coors, the beer with a difference worth tasting. Coors is the one. By the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By Liberty Mutual, for all your auto, home, life, and business insurance. And by AT&T, the right choice. Because it is a very important series, the American League has put together an experienced veteran crew of umpires, and it's Larry Barnett calling the balls and strikes with Mike Riley at first, Joe Brinkman at second, and Steve Palermo, the umpire, at third. If there's a playoff game tomorrow, by the way, they would go to 6 umpires, but only 4 in the regular season. Now for the Blue Jays, it's Nelson Liriano to lead off at second. Lloyd Mosby bats second. George Bell has been moved up. He's in a slump. He moves from 4th to 3rd. Juan Beniquez is the DH. Barfield is in right, and Cecil Fielder is at first base against the lefty. Manny Lee, spelling Tony Fernandez. Garth Orge, a surprise starter at 3rd base, and Charlie Moore does the catching. And many of you know they have lost Fernandez and they have lost Ernie Witt, who might be able to pinch hit. Gibson, Lemon, and Herndon are the Tiger outfield. Jim Morrison starts at 3rd in place of Brookins. Trammell and Whitaker, and then Evans at first, with Mike Heath catching and Frank Tanana in his hometown trying to clinch a division title. Tanana, who came up with the Angels in the 70s and was a power pitcher. In fact, in one season, he led the American League in strikeouts. It's a whole other story now as the first pitch is low to Liriano. Liriano, Mosby, and Bell. Liriano, rookie second baseman who spent most of the season in the minors at Syracuse. Strike. And with the Blue Jays, Tim, they go with Liriano and Lee and Orge, who has not played that much this season, and a makeshift and patchwork lineup in the biggest game of the year.
Well, I think it affects them more defensively than it does offensively. Tony Fernandez, a Gold Glove shortstop, and Ernie Witt, the Blue Jays, are 75 and 38 with Witt as their catcher. That's 37 games over 500. So really the balance of their defense and the real leaders are out of their ball club, or off of their ball club, and I think more defensively than offensively they're hurt.
3 balls and 1 strike on the switch hitting Liriano. And Tanana gets it over for a strike. Liriano, as a right-handed batter, is hitting only 179, and he has speed, and so Tanana does not want to walk this man with Mosby and Bell and Beniquez to follow.
Control is so much of Frank Tanana's game. Spotting the ball, as I said, in and out, change-ups. And it's what's amazing. You talked about leading the league in strikeouts back in the 70s with the Angels, along with Nolan Ryan, 2 of the hardest throwers from opposite really sides of the mound. If you looked at him then and you looked at him now, he has not changed at all. The only difference you would notice is on the radar gun, maybe about 12 to 15 miles per hour. That's how he used to throw in the middle 90s. Now he's around 80, but again, he's been very effective, pitched very well against the Blue Jays because he changes speed so well, and they like the fastball.
3-2 to Liriano is whacked down the line and left and foul.
It's very much like yesterday. If you go back and if you've been reading the papers or you saw the game, there were a number of balls hit off Jack Morris right at people in key situations. They have not been lucky. There's also other reasons. It looks like they're pressing, swinging at some bad pitches, but there's a perfect example. 3-2. Tanana doesn't want to walk Liriano. He gives him a good pitch to hit, gets out a little bit too in front, and instead of a double, you have a foul ball.
It's almost a situation where neither team wants to score first.
That's right.
And the reason you say that, of course, is that in the last 6 games, the team that has scored first has lost. I think that's why they have a 1 on the scoreboard already. Not really, of course.
3-2 pitch is low for ball 4, and so Liriano draws the walk. The Blue Jays with a speedy man at first base and Mosby coming up. And Tim was talking about the difference with somebody like a Fernandez out of the lineup. Another big difference is the fact it takes away a lot of speed. Tony would run. Right now they have Liriano and Mosby, who would be the men you'd have to watch on the bases.
Also the fact he was hitting .325, switch hitter, sprays the ball, moves runners along. And I think what you hit on was that this is a very young ball club. They did go to the playoffs and lose in '85, but they had a leader. It would be a Tony Fernandez. Very young, but very level-headed, and they certainly do miss him offensively. It's funny, before yesterday's game, they said they would not, because he's been nursing a sore knee all year, miss him defensively until they had the 1 error and then the base hit, or the scratchy base hit to left field. They went through Manny Lee's leg to win the ball game in the 12th inning.
Yeah, that would surprise a lot of people around the country who saw yesterday's game to know that that was scored as a base hit for Alan Trammell through the legs of Manny Lee. 0-1 to Mosby is inside, and the count is 1-1. John McLaren, the third base coach. The Blue Jays the last couple of days running on the Tigers. Tanana quickly to the plate, gets it in for a strike, and Mosby can't believe the call, and the count is 1-2.
Take a look for yourself. And I said right on the corner, that ball is right on the edge of the plate, and if you set up with the glove on the corner of the plate and you just about hit the glove, more times than not you're going to get that call to strike.
It's on the corner for you. As a hitter, it was inside.
But you know, as a former catcher, a catcher that caught in 4 decades, that if you put the glove right in the corner and the pitcher hits it, even if you're an inch inside, a lot of times you're going to get that pitch called.
Tanana keeping Liriano close. Liriano, who has not been up that long, already has stolen 13 bases, and he's played in only 36 games. Good sized lead, and again a throw to first base.
Jimmy Key has one of the best pickoff moves in the American League. Frank Tanana, not quite as good, but he is left-handed. And of course, they did steal yesterday, but you think about those 5 double plays on Friday.
They got him swinging on a foul tip held by Heath.
Well, the one reason that Frank Tanana is so effective with a runner on first, he doesn't have a good move, but he doesn't have the high leg kick. He's adjusted that leg kick. He used to have that big high leg kick when he was with California. Now it's almost like a shuffle. He slides the right leg forward instead of picking it up.
And that was the perfect example right there. If Liriano had been thinking of going 1-2, he never had the opportunity. Now George Bell, mired in a slump, takes a strike.
You talked about the shadows. When you take a look from the center field camera, you see that pitcher in the sun, hitter in the shade, and the left-handers throw right out of the scoreboard here.
Bell whacks it into left field for a base hit. Liriano will stop at second as Gibson gets it into Trammell. So George Bell going after Tanana's first pitch as the game's first hit. Toronto has runners at first and second with 1 out. And through the years, Tanana has had problems in the first inning.
Well, he has to establish his control. That's a high changeup up in the strike zone. And the interesting thing, Bell numerically is in a slump, but when you watch yesterday's game, he did not get a whole lot of quality pitches to handle. Jack Morris has no walk in the park. He got one slider up over the plate. He popped it up. Other than that, they pitched him pretty tough. So there's a combination sometimes when you're a slump. You're making good pitches and you're swinging poorly. I'm not sure Bell's swinging as badly as people might think.
Bell was 1 for his last 23, and Benitez takes a strike, and the count is 0-1. Benitez had been with Kansas City and then came over in the summer. Have bat, will travel. He spent his whole career in the American League, and this is his 8th team. 1-1.
With the Orioles the last couple of years, over 300 the last 4 seasons. Came up as a shortstop with Boston, really with good power. And now he is a guy that can hit the ball the other way. He waits on the ball very well. And that's always been his Achilles heel. The ball up and in on him, or the ball on the inside part of the plate. But over the last few years, he's taken that ball and hit it to right field. Already you can see the emotions. You saw it yesterday, you've seen it today. The borderline pitches, you're going to get a lot of flack as far if you're an umpire.
Here's the 1-2 pitch in the dirt and blocked by Heath. Liriano remaining at second, and Bell the runner at first. First inning in Detroit. Temperature in the high 50s. Very, very pleasant day. Full house. Tigers win. They go to Minnesota to meet the Twins on Wednesday. If Toronto wins, there's a 1-game playoff with the Eastern Division Championship tomorrow. Benitez, since coming to Toronto, hitting .299 as a Blue Jay. And he goes down on strikes.
Well, again, one of Tanana's strengths is even though he made a mistake with Bell with a changeup, he comes right back with it. Established the fastball early in the count, takes a little bit off. Benitez right over the pitch for a strikeout. One thing yesterday, Jack Morris for the Tigers stayed out of the big inning early. And of course, it took some defensive play by the Tigers. Balls hit right on the head, or right on the nose, right at people.
Jesse Barfield now. Taps one foul to McLaren at third. Sparky Anderson trying to take his Tigers to the playoffs for the second time. Sparky's been here since mid-'79. And he went all the way in '84, and he's no stranger to the playoffs at Cincinnati. 70, 72, 73, 75, and 76. Little squibber foul, and the count is 0-2.
The overpowering Big Red Machine in 1976 when Sparky Anderson and Pete Rose and Joe Morgan, Tony Perez won 7 postseason games in a row. That's never been done since divisional play.
In '84, he was just 1 over the limit because they swept Kansas City in the playoffs and then took 5 to beat San Diego in the series.
In the National League. I happen to play on an American League team that won 9 in a row.
Yeah, that's right.
Then we woke up.
0-2 pitch. Missing in the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes on Jesse Barfield.
You mentioned Tanana having problems in the first inning. In his last 64 starts, he's given up 54 first inning runs. Really remarkable. And he's not the type of pitcher that you would think would have problems in the first inning. Usually that's a power pitcher, not a guy who throws a lot of off-speed pitches.
1-2. Missing somewhere in the count of 2-2.
Missing somewhere.
You tell me.
Well, all summer long we've talked about how the strike zone has gone down. You can see Mike Heath sitting way inside. Very close.
You tell me where that missed.
Inside, of course.
2-2 is a chopper toward Whitaker, who one-hops it, throws, and gets it. Had to avoid Bell in the process. At the end of the half, Jays nothing. Tigers coming up. Here's your Tiger lineup now today as Lou Whitaker starts things at second base. Bill Madlock is the designated hitter, and Kirk Gibson hits third. Alan Trammell, a great year, the cleanup hitter. Larry Herndon is the platooning right fielder. Chet Lemon, the everyday center fielder, bats sixth. Evans stays in the lineup. The left-hand batter hits seventh. Jim Morrison gets the call over Tommy Brookins today at third, and Mike Heath bats ninth. They platoon Heath and Matt Noakes, the rookie left-hand batting catcher. Bell, Mosby, and Barfield, the outfield most considered to be the best in baseball. Orge at third, Lee at short, Liriano at second, and Fielder at first, with Charlie Moore, the longtime Brewer, back of the plate. And on the mound is Jimmy Key, who would have a shot at the Cy Young Award. Of course, if Roger Clemens wins his 20th today and Dave Stewart has already won 20, a good battle, but he'll be up there amongst the leaders, no question about that. And Key pitching, obviously, the biggest game of his brief career.
And also pitching more innings than he ever has. Did lose against Milwaukee on Wednesday, but pitched very well against Detroit. Again, when you talk about matchup strength versus strength, good sinker, good curveball, can run the fastball in on you. Good changeup. So in other words, he makes you look for the fastball away, and then he'll throw a same pitch that looks the same, and all of a sudden it's not the same speed, and you confuse the hitter.
Talking to Al Whitmar, the pitching coach of the Blue Jays, he said the difference between Jimmy Key and Mike Flanagan, who worked yesterday, is that Key will come inside to right-handed hitters, whereas Flanagan primarily stayed away.
That's a different ability level. Key can get the ball in there. Flanagan's ball kind of runs back in the middle of the plate, so therefore he has maybe one less pitch, but he certainly didn't seem to bother him yesterday.
What a job.
Tigers have problems with lefties. Generally speaking, as Whitaker takes low and outside. In the Tiger lineup today, the left-handed batters are Whitaker, Gibson, and Evans. Whitaker wraps one toward the gap in right center for a base hit. Into a chorus of Lose, Whitaker starts things with a single, and Madlock will come up.
Lou Whitaker and a bunch of the guys who are playing today, kind of the remnants of a losing army. Lou Whitaker limping down to first base, and the only way to get guys out of the lineup or off the roster is really a broken bone. Tony Fernandez with the broken elbow, and broke his elbow on the Madlock slide. And then, of course, Ernie Whitt with 2 broken ribs.
Madlock takes low. Some food has apparently temporarily removed Tommy Brookins, we now understand, from the Detroit roster, at least for the moment. Brookins has a stomach disorder, is the word we are getting, which he developed today, and he is right now being examined at a nearby hospital. So it's fouled away. And the Tiger third baseman's availability today is in question. That's why Morrison is in there at third.
And also Willie Hernandez, the reliever, in the hospital yesterday with a stomach ailment.
But the Blue Jays don't want to hear about the Tiger problems, not minus Witt and Fernandez. The 1-1 pitch is fouled back. Bill Madlock is trying to do basically the same thing he did in '79 when the Giants traded him to the Pirates, and he was instrumental in Pittsburgh's World Championship. And then again in 1985 when he came from Pittsburgh to the Dodgers and helped lead them into the playoffs. Earlier this year, he wore out his welcome in LA, was released, and picked up by Detroit. Fouled away, 1-2. And as Bill said when he left the Dodgers, hey, all I'm looking for are 3 meals and 4 at-bats a day. Meanwhile, happy birthday to Jimmy Williams, the Blue Jay manager, looking for a major present today. Is 44 on this 4th day of October. 1-2.
You can see from the pattern they're trying to get him out with curveballs. Of course, I laughed because somebody said that they reversed that. Looks like sometimes, because Bill does have a weight problem, looked like he had a weight problem in L.A., that he was getting 3 at-bats and 4 square meals a day. But is a professional hitter, 4-time batting championship, and he's perfect for the American League. A perfect DH, playing against left-handed pitching. 14 home runs, hitting .282. And yesterday drove in the first run for the Tigers. Big run that got them even.
Chopper to third. Orge goes to Liriano, and then a high throw, and Fielder is able to stay on the bag.
This is really what the Blue Jays were looking for the last time the Tigers hit.
Their last at bat yesterday, they got the ground ball. It was scored a single, went through the legs of Manny Lee. Really not much you could say about that other than Taylor made that 5-4-3. The Vasco da Gama around the horn.
And a nice job by Fielder to pull down the throw and get on the bag to erase Madlock. Kirk Gibson now hitting .278. Takes a strike, and there's no doubt if the Tigers go on to win this thing, it was Gibson who provided the biggest hit of the season, and that was that 9th inning home run to tie the game last Sunday in Toronto. The Blue Jays were 3 outs away from a sweep and a 4.5 game lead. Gibson popping it up. Manny Lee takes care of that one and takes care of the Tigers. And at the end of 1 in Detroit, no score. Tiger Stadium in Detroit. Al Michaels with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. The final day of the regular season, and all of the other races decided. It will be San Francisco against St. Louis in the National League playoffs, which begin Tuesday. And the Minnesota Twins will be home on Wednesday to face either Toronto or Detroit.
Those are the signs in the background that almost all the hitters we're talking about, the left-handed breaking balls come out of. And when you talk about the 2 pitchers today, both Key and Tanana effective curveballs. Of course, Dave Bergman was the one that was talking about it. And when's the last time he had maybe all curveballs come out of signs? If you're left-handed, you don't ever usually hit off lefties. But very tough background. Tough pitchers, tough background. Low-scoring game.
A tough time of day with Tanana in the sun and Fielder in the shade taking a strike. Willie Upshaw is the everyday Toronto first baseman, but with a lefty, and Upshaw not hitting of late, and with Bell not hitting in Barfield, Jimmy Williams has to go to Fielder to hope to get some punch back into the lineup. And Fielder has the power to do it. He has 14 home runs in only 171 at-bats.
But you wonder about the defense, and we talked about the inexperience and short second. Upshaw a much better fielder than Fielder.
And it's funny the way it turns out. At the end of the season, we were talking about Lee and Liriano and Moore in the lineup. Here's Fielder, and all season long he's made only 14 starts. So it's not a platoon situation. Upshaw has started 134 games. Ernie Witt is in the foreground. 2-2.
Well, the most relaxed guys in the ballpark today, including the fans, including the announcers, are the guys between the white lines. The guys who have to sit and watch. It really takes its toll on those fellas, especially when you can't play. Ernie Witt, the heart and soul of this ball club, along with Fernandez.
I was talking to Mike Flanagan, excuse me, Al, talking about how good a catcher Ernie Witt is. Played against him for years, not only offensively, but the way he calls a game. Then, of course, he had nothing but nice things to say about Greg Meyer, who caught him yesterday, the young catcher that came up. And to all his credit, even though he probably wasn't going to play, he's caught all the pitchers. So if they do get into a playoff and he does have to play, he's familiar. So they do miss an Ernie Witt. Do you have a chance to see him swinging? It looked like he was swinging pain-free, at least when he made contact.
3-2 pitch is fouled away. I'm of the opinion that the fact they have lost Fernandez and Witt, either guy, may be even more damaging down the stretch than, let's say, even losing George Bell, a hot George Bell, because they have enough replacements of a certain degree to fill Bell's shoes as he hits one toward the gap in right center field, and coming on is Herndon into trouble, but he makes the play. Tough deal with that Sun field, and Larry tentatively came in but stayed with it and makes the catch.
I think the same thing that makes it difficult for the hitter to see applies to an outfielder. Doesn't see the ball off the bat that well.
Herndon very unsure with that catch, but he did make the play. Larry Herndon limping also.
That brings up Lee. Anyway, to finish that point, well, the point I'm making is that there's a much bigger difference between Witt and those behind him and Fernandez and those behind him than Bell and whoever else they could move into the lineup to spell George.
Well, especially when you're not scoring runs. And again, you go back to this offensive drought that they've had. Now, maybe a lot of it is because of Ernie Witt and the fact that Fernandez is not in the lineup. But you score 16 runs in 6 games, you're going to struggle. Pitching hasn't been the problem the last week.
Lee pops it up, and it's playable. Back of third for Jim Morrison. Jim who came over from the Pirates in August.
I get the feeling very much like in '82 when we had to beat Milwaukee 4 straight to win. We swept them, or not swept them, but beat them the first 3 games. I'm on the mound, and I'm not really sure that Milwaukee knew that they could win until one guy came to the front, and that was Robin Yount. I threw him a low and away fastball. He sliced it down the right field line, homered the next time to make it 2-0, and all of a sudden they felt they could win. They had just been outscored like 10, 9, 12 runs and so forth, and all of a sudden they maybe had some confidence. Now, I'm not sure that that's not going to have to happen for Toronto. Somebody's going to have a big hit and all of a sudden restore their confidence, because it's certainly not there. They might be loose or give you the appearance of that, but they are not swinging the bats very well.
And Garth Orge hitting only .212. We mentioned that Fielder has played so infrequently. This is only the 9th start of the year at third base for Orge, though he did play quite a bit in the middle of the season at second. For a long time, he and Rance Mulliniks would platoon at third. And when this year began, Orge was basically going to come off the bench, and Mulliniks was going to platoon with Kelly Gruber. One and two.
Tanana has pitched so well against the Blue Jays this year. He's 2-0 with 1 no decision. He's given up only 2 earned runs and 26 innings of work.
2-2.
He really got actually the Blue Jays got him back on the track. He had pitched in 7 straight games, given up something like 27 earned runs in 27 innings, and all of a sudden he goes up there. And again, you talk about matchups in the NBA. Toronto does not match up very well against a Frank Tanana. As I said, they're a high fastball hitting ball club. All of a sudden you have a guy throwing curveballs and changeups when you think you should be getting fastballs. It makes it very difficult, especially when you can't see.
Last week he shut the Blue Jays out through 7, and the Tigers had to go to the pen, and that's the night Toronto came up with 3 in the bottom of the ninth, the key hit being a triple by Manny Lee. Two out, bases empty. We're in the 2nd inning. No score. And Orge goes down on strikes. And Tanana in the shadows has struck out 3 through 2. After 1.5, Toronto nothing, Detroit nothing.
The San Francisco 49ers. The New York Giants. ABC's NFL Monday Night Football is back.
Tiger Stadium in Detroit, where the Tigers yesterday went over the 2 million mark, which used to be quite impressive, but strangely they are talking about a relative lack of support for the Tigers here. A lot of stories in the paper over the past week. Joe Falls had a piece the other day about the lack of enthusiasm and some empty seats on Friday night. I guess it's what would be termed a late arriving crowd this year. The Tigers at one point were 11-19. Allen travel, bunts, and Orge is there, and he was playing shallow and throws him out. So Orge was in to take the bunt away, and Trammell laid one down, but he's gone, 1 away.
It's much more difficult for a third baseman to be alert and to play shallow with a right-handed pull hitter up there. Trammell pulls the ball on the ground. He can spray the ball around in the outfield, but he's basically a pull hitter on the ground. So a very good play of anticipation by Garth Orge.
That's what you like to see when a guy's hitting .344 with 28 home runs, the bunt. Especially when he's swinging the bat as well as he did yesterday.
Herndon takes outside. That's a major favor.
Yes, it is. Especially when he bunts into an out.
Larry Herndon, who had a big postseason in '84, looks at a strike. And the count 1-1. Herndon, in fact, hit a home run that was the game-winning blow in the first game of the '84 World Series. Larry, for the most part, down the stretch, platooning in right field with Scott Lusader. 2-1.
Just another one of Sparky's amazing stories. Scott Lusader, Pat Sheridan plays just about on a platoon basis with Herndon all year long, and you bring up a guy from the minors.
High drive to left field. Bell is going back and still going back, and it's gone. Number 9 for Larry Herndon, 1-0 Detroit.
9th home run of the year. Tries to get the ball in and gets it in a little bit, and Herndon's a low ball hitter, yet if you look at the configurations, as you look at Bell going back, the power alleys are very short here in Detroit. One of those balls, if you can jump up on the ledge, and I've seen it done, you have a chance to catch that ball, but fighting the sun, that's a tough play.
That's what happens when a pitcher gets it in a little bit. The hitter gets it in a little bit, too. A little bit over the fence.
Chet Lemon now takes low. Key earlier this season went all the way, pitched very well against Detroit, but was beaten 2-1 on a 2-run homer by Herndon.
That's home run number 225 for the Tigers this year. That ties the second all-time home run list with the Minnesota Twins back in 1963. They had 225, the all-time home run ball club. The Yankees in '61, they had 240. There are 5 major league teams with over 200 home runs this year. And before this year, the highest number of teams over 200 home runs was 2 back in 1962.
You wonder why they're scuffing the balls? Self-defense.
Got to do something, don't you?
2 balls, 1 strike to count on Lemon. Forge to Fielder, and there are 2 down now in the second inning with the bases empty. And Darrell Evans, the most sprightly 40-year-old you've ever seen, coming up.
What did Alex Gramus, one of the Detroit coaches, said the 8th wonder of the world? That's what he called him. Amazing at his age, at 40. Only 28 home runs last year after leaving the major leagues in home run 2 years ago. The amazing story is he took a pay cut of over 20%. Didn't really know if he was going to come back with the Tigers, but did not get any other offers, and here he is with a chance to drive in 100 runs if he gets one today.
1-0 the count on Evans. Started his career with Atlanta, then to San Francisco and Detroit.
Flanagan pitched him so well yesterday because he got his curveball over, and then when he did, had him looking for it, he ran the fastball up and in because Evans is a good low ball hitter, great-eyed, 99 walks.
It's softly down to Liriano, and Evans is gone. So Key gets 3 ground balls, but Herndon hits one out to left, and at the end of 2, Tigers 1, Blue Jays nothing.
Michigan battles Lorenzo White at Michigan State, or Arizona State at Washington. Coverage begins with College Football Today, Saturday on ABC Sports.
3rd inning, and the difference in the game is a home run by Larry Herndon, 1-0 Detroit.
Take another look. You heard Tim McCarver said he tried to get in, but didn't get it in enough. And of course, you try to make the perfect pitch. Herndon likes the ball away. As you watch George Bell, watch it just. Again, if you get up on that ledge, and again, it takes some foresight, and I guess a Tiger outfielder would probably have more of a chance to do that playing 81 games here. Saw Paul Blair do it. I saw somebody on a Monday night game leap up there. Calderon, as a matter of fact, jumped up there and then caught the ball. So you can be a little bit taller, but again, fighting the sun, Bell wasn't able to do it.
That's the advantage of when a hitter likes the ball outside. He likes to extend his arms, and pitchers try to come in. There are more long ball mistakes made inside than there are away. If you make a mistake away, it's a single. You make it inside, and guys like Herndon can beat you.
Tanana starts Moore outside on the corner for a strike. Charlie Moore, the number 9 hitter, and then Nelson Liriano and Lloyd Mosby. And again, with Wick gone, it has been Greg Myers, who is a rookie and had spent all season in the minors, and Charlie Moore, who does the catching. Moore for many years with Milwaukee, and then this year he was a free agent and had to work his way back through A-ball. He played at San Jose earlier this season. Whacks one into center field for a base hit. So Moore with a single to start things, and Liriano coming up.
Vintage Charlie Moore. Doesn't try to hit home runs, just tries to make contact. That played right field for the Brewers in 1982 when they beat us that last game of the season.
Tell you, Al, you mentioned the San Jose Bees. They may have run more ex-major leaguers through that ball club over the last 3 years. Steve Reitz, Steve Howe, Charlie Moore.
Kenny Reitz.
Kenny Reitz, Steve Howe.
Right. Liriano in for a strike, and the count 0-1. I suppose if you're running an A franchise and you're in a major league area, and remember San Jose is in the Bay Area, so they're fighting the Giants and the A's for attendance, you better have a few names.
That's right.
That's grounded foul, and the count 0 balls and 2 strikes. By the way, it's the final day of the regular season as Moore comes back to first, so we'll bring you up to date on a few things. Roger Clemens is seeking his 20th victory in Boston. Dave Stewart is going to the mound for his 21st at Chicago. And how about Reggie Jackson, who announces on Thursday that his career is done? Pinch hits on Friday. He's playing today. It's the fastest comeback in history. Reggie with a double today at Comiskey Park. In the dirt, and the count 1 ball and 2 strikes. Leave it to Reggie. Reggie, who's had a career that has been totally unpredictable, and sure enough, I suppose that's the way it should end.
Unpredictably.
I'm finished on Thursday, but I'll see you on Friday and Sunday. And down goes Liriano. 4 strikeouts now for Tanana.
And another changeup. I think right-handed hitters have to take the approach that with 2 strikes, he's got to jam me to get me out. That way you're never fooled by the pitch outside. It's easier said than done, but you have to look away off Tanana with 2 strikes and make him jam you. He doesn't throw hard enough to really get inside. At least that way your approach is right. He may still get you out, but at least your approach is right.
Mosby now. Mosby struck out in the first inning. Strike. I would think Tanana, in good measure, benefiting from the lighting conditions here today. He's averaged a little under 6 strikeouts per 9 innings. During the course of the regular season, he already has 4 today in 2 1/3. Another strike. 0-2.
Well, also the relaxed situation. A lot of times I would think that if you're tense, especially with a control pitcher, you will see that. But not with Frank. I mean, he does know there is a tomorrow, even if he doesn't pitch well. And again, confidence breeds success. And I really feel from watching him pitch so far, he knows, number 1, he's on. Number 2, he knows how to pitch to these guys, and he's doing it.
Third inning. Tigers trying to clinch the East, lead 1-0. And it gets by Heath, and Moore will advance to second. Tanana throwing one in the dirt, 0-2, and it cost him.
Well, Mike left the trap door open. Catchers are taught when you go down to keep the glove between the legs. Now watch Mike come up right there. The glove came up, the ball hit the inside of the shin guard and bounced away enough to allow Moore to go to second base. Well, wild pitches have really plagued the Tigers all year. As a matter of fact, Jack Morris's 24th wild pitch in yesterday's game. That's a record.
Tanana has his 5th strikeout. Second time Mosby has gone down on strikes, and George Bell comes up now with 2 down and Moore at second base. One reason the Tigers have had more wild pitches is obviously the loss of Lance Parrish, which was the big story in Detroit during the offseason. But when you examine the entire year, they've gotten a tremendous year out of Matt Noakes and a good enough year out of Mike Heath, and they've been able to do it despite the absence of Parrish. Now Bell, in a situation where first base is open, will get the intentional walk. And they'll work on Benitez. And despite Bell slumping, Sparky Anderson is still not going to let him beat him.
Well, he said that really 7 games ago. He said, I am not going to let George Bell beat me. And I think they've really done a nice psych job on George. He's been reading the papers. You read that, you know you're not going to get any good pitches. And he said, I have to be more disciplined. Well, he's never been disciplined, and he's hitting over 300 with 47 home runs. He's one of the best bad ball hitters in the American League. All of a sudden, you're going to change going into the last 7 or 10 games of the season.
You're so right, too, Jim, because, I mean, Sparky is a master at that, of planting the right quote, making sure it gets back to the guy, and making it think about something. And that's part of a manager's job description in the 80s. Playing media games. Juan Benitez at the plate. 0-1.
Oh, that was a great statement he made in the interview. IQ of 27.
Yeah.
Multiply that by at least 2. No. No. You don't win as many games as Sparky Anderson if you don't know what's going on.
0-2 the count. Moore, the tying run at second base.
It's like an NBA mismatch. They all want to hit the fastball, and he's not giving it to him. And when he does, as he did with Mosby, and it's 2 times in a row, he struck him out on the inside corner. So you're not going to get the ball you want to hit. Benitez wants the ball out over the plate where he can drive the ball, get his arms extended, and Tanana is going to try to keep it from there.
Toward Trammell, he has to wait for it and gets it. So the Jays threaten, but nothing doing. They leave 2. It's Detroit 1, Toronto nothing. ABC's Sunday Afternoon Baseball is being brought to you by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet. There's no slowing down with the Silver Bullet. Tiger Stadium in Detroit. Gorgeous day. Temperature near 60. A little bit of a breeze. And the Tigers, their fans, hopeful of a little celebrating in the late afternoon and early evening in Motown. A victory, and Detroit wins the East. A loss, and it's a 1-game playoff for the title tomorrow. 1-0 Tigers, bottom of the 3rd, and Jim Morrison to lead off. Then Mike Heath and Lou Whitaker, the 8, 9, and 1 hitters. Jimmy Key, 17-game winner. Morrison came over from Pittsburgh. They picked him up in August. It had been Darnell Coles for the most part at 3rd through much of the season, and he went in the deal. And Morrison bunts, and it's a good one. Barehanded, and a great play by Orge at 3rd base. He was playing deep. Came in barehanded. It was his only chance, and throws him out.
Well, that was a terrific play by Orge because the ball hits the heel of his hand. The last play he made on when Trammell tried to bunt, it was a play of anticipation. This time his physical ability comes into play. Ball hit the heel of the hand. He maintained his balance, gripped it with 2 fingers, and threw him out. Really a good play.
Mike Heath now up for the first time. Heath and Matt Noakes have been platooning catchers for Detroit,
with 40 home runs between them.
A couple of doubles yesterday. You know, it's amazing how things fall into place. You get Doyle Alexander. He goes 9-0 and 11 starts. Pitches extremely well with about a 1.63 ERA. Go out and get Madlock. But if Parrish doesn't have a bad back, do you get Mike Heath last summer? And then when you lose Parrish in free agency, how do you know Noakes is going to come out and all of a sudden hit 32 home runs? And Heath, who is a good defensive catcher, and he's a good hitter when he hits the ball like he did yesterday, which is to right field.
Little squibber toward third, and Orge has had a busy day and gets it. Already 4 assists now for Orge, who again was a surprise starter at third base. And Whitaker comes up. You're right, Jim, in the sense that last year when Parrish's back was bothering him, Heath became expendable because Mike was a bust in St. Louis. He'd done the job for Oakland, went over in the Andujar deal, and had a terrible year with the Cardinals, and then came over here in August of '86. All the little things falling into place for Detroit.
Here's a club they thought it was going to struggle offensively. You talked about the 225 home run. Now, this is a good park to hit home runs in, but if they score another 4 runs, they will have scored 900 runs this season. And everybody thought because of Parrish leaving, and this is a club that won 87 games last year. There's only about 4 or 5 teams in baseball that won more last year, yet everybody wrote him off because of Parrish.
One ball, 1 strike, the count. In there, and the count 1-2. Whitaker, not your prototypical leadoff man. He has struck out 107 times this year.
Well, I talked to him about that. He said back in '83, Gates Brown said, you hit the ball 400 feet to center field. Why don't you try to pull the ball, stop doing what he just did then? And of course, a 2-strike situation, he still will go to left field, but he has made a commitment to try to pull the ball. He said he's going to have to change. They used to pitch him away, and you know, he used to be able to hit that ball left field. Now he is swinging through that ball, hence 107 strikeouts. Oh.
107 and a half. It's 2-2.
Oh, that's the magic number today, right? A half?
A half. That's right. Any fraction.
Almost like a magic letter, W.
2-2 to Whitaker. He swings and misses. That strikeout number 108, and he's out at first base. Just barely out. Charlie Moore had to corral it and throw, and gets him by a half step.
Well, a fine play by Charlie Moore, who goes after the ball in a fashion like Heath the last time. But of course, Whitaker, we mentioned earlier, he can't run, but a good recovery by Charlie Moore to get Whitaker easily at first base.
So we've played 3, and Detroit still leads 1-0.
Bill
keeping you in touch.
Final day of the regular season. I was thinking ahead to tomorrow. If there is a tomorrow for these 2 teams, meaning Toronto would have to win, Detroit would send Walt Terrell to the mound with 3 days rest, and Jimmy Williams was non-committal. He could start Jim Clancy, who pitched only a couple of innings the other day. He could go with Dave Steed. He could go with John Cerruti. Who do you think would have the advantage tomorrow?
I think a left-hander would have the advantage for the Toronto Blue Jays. The Tigers are 8 games under 500 against lefties and 30 games over against right-handed pitchers. So regardless of who he goes to, I think Musselman or Cerruti would seem the logical choice.
I'll go with Terrell. He's only 11-0 here at Tiger Stadium.
Wow. Wow. Jim and I were talking to Walt before the ball game, and he said, you know, I'm usually a guy who wants the ball. He said, I do not want the ball tomorrow. I don't want to have to pitch tomorrow.
Well, there are a few guys who will be flinging the ball around at the Meadowlands tomorrow night, and we'll have it for you Monday Night Football, such as it is. The San Francisco 49ers and the New York Giants tomorrow at 9 Eastern time.
Or part of them.
Yeah.
Some of them. It was great. They put a score up on the, what was it? Detroit B team 17, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 14.
Barfield leading off here in the top of the 4th inning, and the count is 1-0. Barfield, Fielder, and Lee.
Jimmy Williams with a little dialogue to Al Whitmore. He said, I think we got them. They scored first. The reason we said that.
Yeah, that's right.
I asked him, I said, how are you going to let them score first? Well, we saw how. Herndon with a home run. And the reason we're saying that, of course, is in the last 6 games, the team that's scored first has lost. So they must feel really relieved in the Toronto Blue Jay dugout.
Just a final thought, since we have Monday Night Football tomorrow, obviously at halftime and throughout the game, we'll talk about the weekend and the strike and the fact that the 28 player reps are scheduled to meet in Chicago tomorrow at about the time Monday Night Football will be on the air. So obviously we will keep you abreast of that as the proceedings develop. I know one thing, the Minnesota Twins, I don't know who they are rooting for, but I think what they'd like to see are 2 26-inning games back-to-back.
Unquestionably.
And down goes Barfield. And Frank Tanana now has 6 strikeouts.
Again, it's like Houdini. He gets you looking away. Look where Mike Heath goes. Look where the ball ends up. Barfield thinks it's inside, right on the corner, or at least close enough for Larry Barnett, the home plate umpire.
Not as much the pitch sometimes as how you got there, and he got there with that inside strike with a lot of off-speed pitches.
Fielder takes high, ball 1.
Well, Andy Etchebarren caught me when I played for the Orioles, and he went over to the Angels, and he said Frank Tanana had better command of the inside pitch to a right-handed hitter than any left-hander he ever caught. Now, he caught Cuellar, who won a Cy Young Award in 24 games, and then Dave McNally, who won 20 games 3 or 4 or 5 times. Both outstanding pitchers. Of course, Cuellar a better screwball, but McNally could pitch inside with the best of them. Yet Tanana, at 95 miles per hour at age 22, could spot the ball inside, and he can still do it and then take some off, like you just saw right there. Really what you said, the way you have to go up there trying to hit a certain pitch off Tanana. You have to make him jam. You have to look for the changeup or the curveball. Otherwise, he's going to get you out all day long.
2-2.
I think we in baseball, as players, grow up in the game thinking that the proper way to pitch is to throw fastballs behind in the count and curveballs when you're ahead in the count. That's because in the little leagues you can't get your curveball over very well. But you grow up into professional ball and you find out the best way to pitch is hard stuff when you're ahead in the count and off-speed stuff when you're behind in the count. You just flip-flop that thinking.
And that's lined into left field by Morrison for a base hit. So Fielder is on and Lee is the batter. It's the first time I've ever heard that theory. You're right. That is exactly right.
But of course that means you have to work on your off-speed stuff and you have to throw strikes when you're behind in the count. You don't want to have the same thing prevail that prevailed when you were a youngster, inability to get the curveball over. Unless you have the type of stuff that Jim, that you had, that Bob Gibson had, guys who can almost tell you what's coming and you still can't hit it.
You keep this up and they'll be talking about you managing the Mets in '89. We know it's Johnson in '88.
Oh, no.
He'll probably have embarked on a movie career by then.
The runner goes. The pitch to Lee is high. The throw is in time to nail him. So they send Cecil Fielder, and he's the second out in the 4th inning.
I think they missed a hit and run.
I do too.
I can't believe that they would run with Fielder, who doesn't have good speed, Heath, who can throw, Tanana, who has a pretty good move and gets rid of the ball quickly. Doesn't really matter whether he tags him or not. It's a phantom tag.
You're exactly right in missing the hit and run. Fielder not only doesn't have a steal, he hasn't attempted one this season.
The reason I say that, 5 double plays on Friday night off Doyle Alexander. And yesterday with the right-handed pitcher Jack Morris, who's fairly tall, throws a lot of really split-finger fastballs and sliders. Maybe you're going to run a little more, but I would think that they were hitting and running there.
In his entire career, which spans parts of 3 seasons, Fielder had never even attempted a steal, so it's obviously a botched hit and run.
Either that or the element of surprise. One of the two.
And on the hit and run play, it's not imperative that the runner at first base get a good jump. It's up to the hitter, number one, to get the sign and then to make contact. Obviously, Manny did not do that then.
To right field, Herndon fighting the sun, goes back, and it's off the wall and caroming back toward the infield. And Lee can run around second, on his way to third, and in there. So Manny Lee sort of atones, but what if Fielder had been at first base? We would have been tied.
As we said, tough field. Ball off the middle of the wall. Not going to catch that line drive looking into the sun. And also, Lee with not a whole lot of power. He did hit a home run here left-handed the other night off the overhang in right field. Herndon with a strong throw, but excellent speed for a triple.
Boy, it really points up the significance of that caught stealing, doesn't it?
So Lee is the tying run 90 feet away with 2 out in the 4th inning. Detroit leading 1-0. Second inning home run by Larry Herndon, and now Orge, who struck out in the second.
Being at third does change the complexion a little bit, takes away the curveball, but it doesn't matter.
And he pops it in the air to shallow left center field for Chet Lemon. No runs, 2 hits, strand a man at third after 3.5. Still 1-0 Tigers. That's what they hope in the World Series. And the World Series would begin a week from Saturday night in this ballpark if the Tigers get that far.
As long as the throw beats a runner by this much, it's really tough for an umpire to tell whether the tag is right on the money. Whitaker may have missed Fielder, but the fact that the ball beat him by such a large margin, it's really no contest. You never get an argument from a guy who's tagged out in that particular way either, or rarely do you.
Bill Madlock now in the bottom of the 4th inning. Detroit leading 1-0. Strike 0-1. Madlock, Gibson, and Trammell. Again, the elementary information for those just flipping by on the dial. If Detroit wins, they win the East and go to the playoffs. If Toronto wins tomorrow, these two teams meet in a 1-game playoff for the Eastern Division title. 1-2.
Not too hard to see the strategy on Matlock, trying to get him to fish at the curveball. Much better fastball hitter. Or the changeup.
Boy, he's had some bad-looking at-bats the last 3 days.
Unless you throw the high-away fastball, and he looks like he is looking for the ball away. And the key that Flanagan had yesterday and Jimmy Key so far is that they've been able to get their breaking ball over.
Kirk Gibson popped out in the 1st inning.
Needs a home run today to be one of the, along with Darryl Strawberry, the only players in the game that have 25 home runs or over 25 home runs and over 25 stolen bases the last 4 years. It's an idea that he can hit for power and still exceptional speed. What a year Strawberry had.
Wow, I'll say.
You saw him on a pretty much daily, day-to-day basis.
1-1 on Gibson. Nothing Detroit. Larry Herndon hit a home run in the second. Jimmy Key, the man Jimmy Williams would have wanted under any circumstance to pitch this game. And that's the way it happened to work out in the rotation.
Of course, he is hoping that what has happened earlier this year against Detroit won't happen today. He lost 2-1 earlier in the year and then had a game where he gave up 2 runs, and the Blue Jays came from behind to win the ball game, but he didn't get a decision. So he'd like to pitch well, but also like to see a little bit of offense.
Key, and it would be an empty individual honor if he loses this game, but he has a very good chance to wind up as the American League's ERA champion. Frank Viola is second, about a 1/10 of a run behind right now.
And certainly a consideration for the Cy Young Award this year. George Bell, consideration for the MVP award along with Alan Trammell. And this game is so big, it's almost sacrilegious to talk about individual awards.
Exactly. Three-two pitch is ball 4, and to the backstop. Gibson will stop at first base. First walk given up by Jimmy Key, and it brings up Alan Trammell. On an individual note, Roger Clemens pitches a shutout in Boston today, strikes out 12, and so Clemens winds up with 20 victories. Trammell, whose wife gave birth to a girl, her name is Jade, in Southern California last week, and Trammell this morning at 8 o'clock was out at the airport to greet his wife and do arrival as they arrived on the red eye from Southern California.
Got up early, I guess, what, on Friday, got a videotape at 9:30, UPS, of the baby. Good reason to get up that early.
I think a red eye is very appropriate when you talk about a game like this. We mentioned in the opening remarks how the players had a very difficult time sleeping, and that can happen to you. I'll tell you, a million thoughts run through your mind.
Strike and a count 2-1.
What a year Trammell's had. You saw the numbers. Never hit fourth before. Needed a cleanup hitter with Parrish gone. He's much healthier this year. Had shoulder problems.
Gibson goes, has a big jump, and no throw. Gibson a flying start, and Moore never had a prayer.
Especially with the type of pitch that he had to handle. Watch Trammell get out of the way. Charlie has to reach way, and the ball actually almost hit Trammell. And when a catcher has to do that much, even without a good jump, rarely will he have a shot at the runner on a straight steal, because most of the runners who steal are fast anyway. They're stealing for a purpose.
The one thing that does, though, is it opens up first base, and with a count 3-1, they will walk Trammell and pitch to Herndon. That steal for Gibson, by the way. As you look at Herndon's home run, that was Gibson's 26th stolen base. This is the difference in the game coming in the second inning, just making its way over the screen. And you know, one very interesting thing about the composition of this Tiger team, I'm trying to remember the last time I saw a team in which the guys who were 1 and 2 in stolen bases hit third and fourth. Gibson and Trammell.
Boy, this is a gutsy move here. Guy homers. I know you double play ball and you're out of the inning, but it also creates a situation where a home run or a double gives you the big inning or gets it started. A team that has been struggling offensively, talking about Toronto, is going to be 2 or 3 runs down.
I think one of the reasons he opted to do it was the count was 3-1. Strike, 0-1. I would have doubted if the count was 1-0 or 1-1, he would have done that.
There's another option is, say, especially when you're talking about a guy leading the league in ERAs, averaging just about 2 walks a game. Make your pitch. If you don't, not really an intentional walk. It's more or less an unintentional intentional walk. The only reason I say that is because if he does hit a double or a home run, you're looking at a 4-0 deficit. You're looking at not only a psychological deficit, but also a physical one. 4 runs down on a team that has not been able to score runs lately.
Yeah, and your point's well taken, because you don't want one stolen base to open up things for a big inning.
That's a half swing, and Herndon is gone. So Larry, with barely a murmur, goes down on strikes, and that's number 3 for Jimmy Key.
Another look, hit the high fastball for a home run. Key, a sinker baller, right at the knees. Did not even get the bat off. Well, he got it off his shoulder, but couldn't get it started. Definitely didn't get it finished.
Chet Lemon, a Tiger since '81. Began, you might recall, with the White Sox. Instrumental in the big year in '84. Fouls it away, and the count is 0-1.
It's also a statement from Jimmy Williams about what he thinks of Jimmy Key's ability. Put you in this situation, I know you can get out of it. Well, he hasn't done that yet, but made a great pitch on Herndon for strike 3. There's another reason the Tigers have played so much better. Lemon, who has struggled at the bat the last couple of years, moved off the plate, made an adjustment, used to stand on the plate, and all you had to do is run the ball in on him and got the ball away. He could be a difficult out, but this year he's moved off the plate. His average is up, his home runs are up, his RBIs are up. Always been a great center fielder, does not run much, never been able to steal bases.
One and one on Chet Lemon with 2 on and 2 out, and it's 2-1. Toronto trying to force a 1-game playoff tomorrow. Gibson at second, Trammell at first. If you're wondering, the playoff game is here, and that's by virtue of winning a coin toss. I wonder if they tossed an American or a Canadian coin.
There's another situation where where you talk about losing an Ernie Witt or even a Greg Meyer, a young catcher. Charlie Moore has not caught that much. Does not know the hitters as well as Witt or even Myers. So shouldn't be really a problem with a Jimmy Key, who really should know what he wants to do out there. But a lot of times it's nice to know, Tim, that when you get late in the ball game and you want to throw that curveball, you'd like to see the 2 down there or whatever the curveball sign is. That's a little bit extra confidence.
That's the quiet game that you really don't see between the catcher and the pitcher, but it's so very important.
You see him stepping off. Charlie Moore really almost has to wait for him to make the decision.
Here's the 2-2 to Lemon, and it's a chopper to the right side. Liriano gets there and over to Fielder for the out. So Key does work out of it, and after 4 it remains 1-0 Detroit. The Detroit Tigers, there's Matt Noakes and Doyle Alexander, and what an acquisition. Billy Muffett, the pitching coach.
Interesting story about Billy Muffett, where I was personally concerned. Played for the Cardinals against the Tigers in 1968. We were up 3-1, and we lost 3 in a row. We had a Super Ball club. We just won the World Championship the year before. Billy was the pitching coach for that team, and the only thing that club is remembered for now is losing to the Detroit Tigers. And I'm afraid to say that if the Toronto Blue Jays, after 155 games of Super Baseball, if they lose their last 7, that'll be the only thing they'll be remembered for.
Moore takes up high, and of course the Blue Jays would go down as the team that not only squandered the lead, but wound up losing their last 7. That's how they would end this year if Detroit wins today.
Well, they quoted Mike Flanagan in the paper the other day saying, I like to think of us the team that has won 96 games, not that a team that has lost 6 straight. But the team that won 96 games had Tony Fernandez and Ernie Witt. So I know what he was trying to do was try to give them a confidence boost, but the team we're seeing today is not the same team that won 96 games. You don't have the same personnel.
3-0 the count.
Looking at a ball club that most people feel might be the strongest team in baseball.
And yet that's so much part of the game as Moore draws the walk. You look at the Giants and you look at the Cardinals, and they each had a ton of problems in terms of injuries this year. Doyle Alexander, the acquisition, the great acquisition by Detroit. They had their troubles, and
well, even the Tigers with Gibson.
Yep.
With the rib injury, like the last at bat in spring training, and did not get back till the second week in May. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with their 11-19 start. Since then, they played better than anybody in baseball.
Liriano is up there to bunt, and it's a foul ball. Evans letting it roll foul. You know, I guess the great thing about the game of baseball, and maybe one of the reasons we love it, is its unpredictability. I went back and looked at Sports Illustrated's preseason issue, and they have some great writers who give their input, led by Peter Gammons, as to what teams are the best, and they rank them, you'll recall, 1 through 26. If the Tigers win, the 4 teams that will go to the playoffs will rank 11th, 13th, 16th, and 17th. Cards, Giants, Twins, Tigers before the year.
Well, the favorite in the American League East were the Cleveland Indians. And why? Because they led the American League in runs and batting average last year.
That's grounded down to Trammell. Should be 2 to Whitaker 1. Double play. Boy, that'll kill you. You go up there to bunt and you foul it off, and instead of a man at second and 1 out, you have 2 gone and nobody on.
Trammell and Whitaker turned 5 double plays here Friday night. And the Detroit fans have seen that combination for the last 10 years. And I guess to complete that thought about the Blue Jays, and if they do lose this game, they'll lose their last 7. Why are we as human beings so prone to emphasizing the blame when people lose, and when teams lose, then we are more prone to give credit to the winners?
Sure.
A tough part of human nature, I suppose.
One to go. Oh, there are a lot of ironies. I mean, the stigma that Toronto will have attached to it is far more than, let's say, Cleveland. People expected Cleveland to be good this year, and they were never in the race. And certainly Toronto had a far superior year to the Indians, and yet people will forget all about the Indians and just remember the Blue Jays and blowing a big lead. Let's go to the couch with that one, Doctor. What do you think? Why? Chopper, Evans, overhands to Tanana, covering, and down go the Jays in the 5th inning. At the end of 4 1/2, it's the Tigers 1 and the Blue Jays nothing. Tiger Stadium in Detroit. Final day of the regular season. A Tiger win, they win the East. A Blue Jay win, they force a playoff tomorrow. And right now, on a Larry Herndon home run in the 2nd, it's 1-0 Detroit as we go to the bottom of the 5th. Jimmy Key working for Toronto, facing Evans, Morrison, and Heath, the bottom of the order. 1-0.
You talked about the tenseness, the apprehensiveness of this yesterday. Great dialogue. You have a rookie catcher, Greg Myers, Mike Flanagan throwing Evans nothing but curveballs, and he says he's going to hang one of those suckers. And Myers looks up and says, well, here comes another one. You know, I mean, he told him what's coming, and Flanagan just made perfect pitch after perfect pitch, and Evans, you know, had an offer. But a rookie catcher saying, well, here comes another one.
Swing. Evans wanted to hold back and couldn't, and the count is 2-1.
Key tying Darrell up inside. You know, you mentioned Reggie Jackson earlier in the ball game, and Reggie and Darrell Evans, the only 2 players in the history of the game that have had 100 or more home runs with 3 different clubs.
Evans doing it with Atlanta, San Francisco, and Detroit. Reggie with Oakland, the Yankees, and then California.
What makes him, and he's upset with himself. As we said earlier, he walked 99 times. What makes him such a good hitter is that he's very strong. Has a very small strike. You can see the open stance once the ball down in the strike zone.
That's grounded to first, and one first baseman retires the other. Cecil Fielder takes it to the bag, and with one down, it will bring up Jim Morrison. Well, we mentioned before that Tim McCarver had played in 4 different decades. Darrell Evans is not that far away. He first came up in '69, played through the '70s and '80s. He's going to play next year. There's no question about that at age 41. He's got a shot.
Big question, will he take another pay cut?
That is a good question.
That is a good question.
Jim Morrison takes a strike, and the count is 0-1.
Yeah, another off year, Darrell. Only 34 home runs and 99 RBIs so far.
Well, no one really knows whether he took a pay cut last year. We'll see. With the collusion issues still out. The reparation may be more than what he lost in salary initially.
Some nice little bonuses will be on their way.
Christmas presents, possibly.
Mr. Gibson will be a pretty good beneficiary. Kirk, he was the guy around whom the entire case was built. Oh, 2 pitch is outside, 1-2.
Oh, there's 62 players in '85 and '86, I believe, that will be affected by the decision.
Well, the '86 decision has not been rendered yet.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Is that right?
There's an arbitrator looking at that.
So
that's a separate case.
Just '85,
right?
2-2. Yeah, I would predict you will see a lot of free agent signings this winter.
Do you?
Yeah, I really do.
I'm not so sure.
You don't think so, huh?
No.
Well, I think there are some clubs that their fans, for instance, the Dodgers, the Orioles, are clamoring for it right now. Here's a ground ball to the right side. And Liriano takes care of Morrison. And there are 2 down. You take a look at some once very proud franchises like Los Angeles and Baltimore, and you have to do something to show the fans that you're going to try to turn it around in a hurry.
You either have to fire the manager, make some trades, or sign free agents, or win. And as you said, some of those franchises that used to win aren't doing that. Talk in Baltimore that Eddie Murray might be traded. Of course, they've been talking about that ever since the Orioles have been losing.
Heath takes a strike, and the count is 0-1. Funny, Key has gotten almost every Tiger to hit the ball on the ground, but the one man who got it in the air is the difference in the game, Herndon.
Well, he has the 2 fastballs. He throws one with the seams, and that's the sinker, and then he tries to throw the one up and in, which is what he tried to do with Larry Herndon. As you see a happy fan, and he just did not get it in far enough. Or maybe didn't get it up high enough either.
Popped up. Fielder having trouble. Now he comes into the shade and makes the catch. So the Tigers are gone in order. We've played 5. Still, Detroit 1, Toronto nothing.
This is 5 TV.
Next Saturday, college football. Check your local listings. You'll see either Michigan against Michigan State or Arizona State taking on Washington in Seattle, 3 Eastern time. Well, we're going to the 6th inning now, the final game of the regular season. Tim, you cover the Mets on an everyday basis. I was surprised yesterday, Davey Johnson signing on for one more season, saying that 1988 will be his final season as a manager. It seems odd that he would go into a situation where he'd be a known lame duck.
It seems very odd. In 1989, he will be the assistant to the player development head, Joe McIlvain.
As George Bell starts things by looking at a strike.
And I don't think I can think of an example of a manager in that situation. I mean, what kind of attitude do the players have next year? What about discipline on a ball club when a manager's a lame duck manager? I think one of the big reasons from reading the papers in New York was the fact that Davey allowed the fact that contract negotiations, an extension of the 1988 contract into 1989, was brought up by Johnson, and it did not sit well with Mets management, and especially since the Mets were still in a pennant race. That's what upset Frank Cashin, Nelson Doubleday, and Fred Wilpon, and that could be the reason that he wasn't given the extension in 1989.
That last call did not sit well with one George Bell, with the count now 1-2. 2-2 now. Bell, Benitez, and Barfield, the 3, 4, and 5 hitters in the 6th inning. 1-0 Detroit. There's Benitez on deck. Woo. 3-2.
It's another perfect example of hitting the glove, but where is the glove? He's so far inside that he hits the glove, but it's a ball. I have to give Larry Barnett, the home plate umpire, credit for knowing that.
Change is hit high in the air to left center field. Lemon is there. One gone.
You just never know what to look for off Tanana. 3-2, you think you're going to get a fastball. Throws you the changeup. Get out on your front foot a little bit. You try to keep your hands back. Yet your body's already gone towards the pitcher, and the result is a fly ball to center field.
Juan Benitez. 1-0 the count. Remember, Tanana, now the last time he faced Toronto, he went 7 innings, 7 shutout innings. But his shoulder stiffened a bit. He had to come out, and the bullpen blew it. He's in the 6th right now with a shutout.
As we said, that was after 7 consecutive, really, starts where he got rocked. Almost a earned run per inning in 7 starts. So kind of a tough go for him, but again, the matchup is perfect.
Sometimes when you have a serious injury, it's hard to rationalize it, that it's a blessing in disguise. But I think it was in Tanana's case, because it taught him how to pitch. He realized he couldn't overpower anybody anymore.
We're talking about that tricep injury back in the 70s. Can you imagine Frank Tanana with a 95-mile-per-hour fastball? Because that's what he had, and he pitched exactly the way he did today. He could change speeds. He could throw his curveball 3-2, 2-0, which is why he led the league in strikeouts, which you mentioned, Al.
There's a chopper toward third. Morrison has it. 2 down, and it brings up Barfield.
This reminds me so much of Mike Boddicker, the year he had in 1983. First World Series game, 12 strikeouts, where you could almost say, Mike, you're allowed to go up to home plate and place the ball where you want it to be. You know, in other words, run 60 feet 6 inches and put it where you want it on the corner. Not only is Tanana changing speeds, where the ball is as far as the position on the plate is just outstanding this afternoon.
That was interesting about the 83 series. That was the only game the Orioles lost, was when Boddicker struck out the 12, isn't that right? Gary Maddox hit the 2-run homer. Phillies won 2-1.
Morrison, look what I found. Throws in the dirt, scooped out by Evans. Well, if this is a team of destiny, that play right there proved it.
Tom Monahan, the owner of the Tigers, owns pizza joints, Domino Pizza. He ought to have ice cream joints. Snow cones on both corners.
Sunday afternoon baseball is being brought to you by Michelob Light. When the sun goes down, light up the night with Michelob Light. In Detroit, Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, and Tim McCarver. The Tigers trying to clinch the East, lead 1-0, bottom of the 6th inning. And the top of the order, it's Whitaker, Madlock, and Gibson. With Jimmy Key on the mound, Whitaker fouls it back, and the count is 0-1. Well, before the game, there was a local television critic waiting to interview Palmer.
Formerly with the Birds.
Yes, said I was dogging it.
1-1 the count. Little chopper foul and the count 1-2.
I thought you were going to say that Earl Weaver called from Florida and said I was dogging it.
Does bear a resemblance.
That's is he chomping on a blue jay? Was that?
Yeah.
So what, a $500 fine in Canada?
Wearing that outfit?
No, eating a blue jay.
With the exchange inside and the count 2-2. Jimmy Key, one mistake, earned it. Hit one just over the fence, just barely over the fence in the second inning. Outside of that, he has been in control, but so has Tanana. And Whitaker slaps it foul. 2-2 the count.
It's very similar to what Doyle Alexander did on Friday night. He made one mistake. Manny Lee, a 3-run home run, and didn't make many more after that. Kind of illustrates that it is a team game. So hopefully that, if you're a Toronto fan, that one mistake will be erased as it was Friday night. It's interesting with Alexander. He's 9-0 in 11 starts with a 1.63 ERA, which shows how well he's pitched. Yet they averaged over 5 runs a game for him.
Whitaker hits it into center field for a base hit. That's Detroit's first hit since Herndon's homer in the second.
Well, good hitting there. He fouled off the good pitches. And then 3-2, you don't want to lead off walk. Takes the fastball right back the middle. Not trying to pull it. As we talked about earlier, 107 or really 108 strikeouts now. That's vintage Lou Whitaker before he tried to become a home run hitter. Put the ball where it's pitched.
Madlock with Whitaker going late, and it's fouled away in the count 0-1.
Often when a manager is stuck with one or two alternatives, do you swing away or do you bunt? He'll take the in-between. He'll hit and run. Madlock's too good a hitter to bunt with. So that's the alternative. Just send the runner, even though Whitaker is not a fast runner with his leg all banged up.
Also, the way they're pitching Madlock, which is a lot of breaking balls, you make him wait because you make him stay back and make contact. Ooh, you saw the good pickoff move. You said Key was one of the best in the American League. The Tigers saw another guy, Mike Flanagan, who was outstanding pickoff move.
Lou complaining about a balk, and the interesting thing, if Key's pitching in the National League, it probably is.
Well, that's the great angle. The rule is you cannot bring your leg behind the pitching rubber and then go home. You have to go to first. So what he does is he puts his knee behind the rubber but keeps his foot in front of the rubber and then goes to the plate. Very deceptive.
Key had 7 pickoffs by the All-Star break this year. No balls, 2 strikes the count. Bill Madlock, 4-time batting champion in the National League. Still 0-2.
And in no time when he was a batting champion was he on a winner.
Right.
Strange how the game works. You don't want that runner to take you out, so you drop down, you make him get down, and that actually clears the way to first.
Message from Garcia. I saw Louis. I tell you what, the runner gets the message in a hurry.
I'll guarantee you.
I saw Louis Aparicio hit a guy in the forehead, mainly because the guy didn't go down. I mean, he came through. I also saw him drop down and get spiked. You know, because the guy was coming up, sliding in. Because tell you what, it erases what happened to Tony Fernandez. Even though apparently that slide up in Toronto that ended up breaking his arm, Toronto players and coaches describe it more as a block. It really wasn't a slide. It was more like which I've seen something Reggie Jackson does very much. Al McRae.
One and two.
Well, the pitcher's best friend, the double play ball. I guess the only better friend is the triple play.
Jimmy Key's best friend in this game is going to be a couple of runs.
Two out, bases empty, bottom of the 6th inning. 1-0 Detroit. And Gibson is down on strikes. Number 4 for Jimmy Key after 6. 1-0 Detroit.
Message was furnished by Major League Baseball.
Yvonne Lendl, John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, and more. The world's top players compete at the AT&T Tennis Challenge. ABC's live coverage begins Saturday.
1-0 Detroit on a 2nd inning home run by Larry Herndon. Tigers try to clinch the East. Meanwhile, back in the 4th inning, Cecil Fielder on a botched hit and run with Lee taking at the plate got thrown out easily, and then Lee followed with this triple off the wall and right. And that's the closest the Jays have come to scoring today.
Jimmy Williams, the manager of the Blue Jays, hoping that that fielder's choice doesn't come back to haunt him.
Yes, that's right. 7th inning now as Tanana starts things with a strike to Fielder, and the count is 0-1. Blue Jays picking a bad time to go into a collective slump. Blanked over the last 7 innings yesterday and through the first 6 today. 1-1.
It's an interesting thought about that slump, Al. Sandy Koufax always talked about sequencing yourself through a lineup, and he said if you get the pitcher leading off an inning and you get him out, then you get the next 2 guys out, you have the 3rd hitter, which is usually your better average hitter, coming up in a situation where he leads off the inning, so he might more apt to try to hit a home run instead of maybe coming up with somebody on, and he does what he does natural. And what's interesting about Witt and Fernandez being out of the lineup, you're taking your best average hitters out of the lineup, and what you're left with are home run hitters. And most of the time, in tense games or in games, extra inning games, or games when you're struggling, when you go up and try to hit a home run, you can't do it. You overswing, you jump out. Mechanically, you just aren't the hitter that you were when you're not trying to hit one, where you stay back, you wait, you see the ball, and then let things happen. So it's interesting that Fernandez, not only physically with the 325 and being able to hit the ball to all fields and being a switch hitter, leaves yourself with George Bell trying to maybe hit more home runs than he's capable of doing, even though he has hit 47. Barfield, who struggled all year.
And that's called strike 3 to Fielder.
And then you got Tanana out there doing his thing.
Number 7 for Frank.
Well, his thing is rather formidable this afternoon. This year, Tanana had 137. He's got 144 strikeouts. That's the most strikeouts he's had in 10 years. So he is really honing his style of pitching as well as he did with the hard style of the middle 70s.
Here's Lee now looking at a strike. Lee, a switch hitter and a better right-handed batter. He is fouled out and tripled and doesn't like that call by Barnett.
I'm not sure if it's that or he doesn't like Tanana's curveball.
Combination of the two.
Yes. Gravity ball, about a 5-foot break. He says, I want a high-away fastball like last time so I can triple again.
That's an octopus, which for years in Detroit has become a tradition at the Red Wings games. For as far back as I can recall, they've always done that, I think, at the final game of the Red Wings season. Well, that was that baby came out of 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea. It's the 0-1 pitch on the way. And the count is 0-2.
And it was fresh, too. Here we are in Detroit. Where can you get an octopus that's fresh? You got to fly it in.
One of the Great Lakes, maybe Lake Huron. Or hard by Lake Ontario off the Toronto shore. Here's the 0-2 pitch. Hit high in the air to right field. And Herndon makes the catch. So
it could go on all afternoon, and maybe the last living, what do we call it, octopi in Lake Erie. Who knows?
Right. Superior or Michigan as well. 2 down, and it will bring up Orge. Struck out and fly to center. Two down, bases empty. 1-0.
Jim Morrison on the line at third base, and not a bad idea with Orge hitting and a left-handed pitcher throwing a lot of breaking balls. Similar yesterday with Mullenix on the line. And there's an example right there that Orge can pull the ball, so you're trying to prevent the double. Baseball, however, baseball's obsession with guarding the line is not as much in vogue nowadays as it once was, and it's for the better.
They used to do it with everybody.
Yeah.
You have a guy that's throwing bounding balls in the hole, and you're playing the line, and then the next guy comes up and hits a 2-run home run, and you lose.
But the combination of Frank Tanana throwing a lot of change-ups and curveballs, saying similar to Flanagan throwing a lot of curveballs yesterday, and Mullenix made a fine play on a ball that saved the game, only to have it delayed, and Detroit winning a little later on.
1-2 pitch is a strikeout, and it's all Heath can do to come up with the ball, and the Jays get a break. So strikeout number 8 turns out to be a Pyrrhic one for Frank Tanana, because Orge is on and Moore's coming up.
Well, in a close ball game like this, you see a play like that that's probably too early to develop a thought. But you think of Mickey Owens back in the 1941 series. Or John, of course, it could be harmless because after all it is 2 outs. But you want to get your outs while you can. That ball did bounce in the dirt, so it'll be a strikeout, the 8th of the ball game, and a wild pitch. Mike Heath's really had a tough year. He and Matt Noakes both have had tough years defensively because of the types of pitchers that Roger Craig left behind when he went to the San Francisco Giants. Roger, the pitching coach here, and now the Giants lead the National League in wild pitches.
Moore swung on and missed.
Of course, to amplify that, the reason is the split-fingered fastball. As you said, Jack Morris having a pretty good year, 18-11, a gutsy game yesterday. 39 home runs, 24 wild pitches, but that's because he throws that split finger fastball at about 80-some miles per hour. And when it goes down in a hurry. Almost have to shovel the ball out. I mean, it's almost like the drills you do in spring training. Obviously, you did for 4 decades, Timmy.
Don't remind me.
2 out, Orge at first. And he has to block that one, and the count is 1-1. Tying run at first base. 2 out. We're in the 7th inning. 1-0 Detroit. Heath readjusting his shin guard. Tigers, remember, were a game back when this series began. They had to win a big game Thursday against Baltimore to make it a game behind instead of 2. There's Orge, the runner at first. And then 2 one-run victories Friday and yesterday. That's hit into left field for a base hit. Gibson will cut it off near the line and hold Orge at second. So strikeout in the wild pitch, and the inning is prolonged, and here comes Liriano. Maybe.
Almost like he does not know how to pitch to Charlie Moore. He's got the single up the middle. He walked him on 4 pitches, and there just figured throw a fastball away, and Moore jumped on it.
Sometimes the number of outs determine whether you're going to take an extra base. It's really no advantage for Orge to be on third base, taking a chance that Gibson will go to third. But had he kept going, there's a pretty good shot that Gibson still would have gone to second base to keep the go-ahead run off second. But with 2 outs, no sense in taking that chance.
Tiger bullpen will get busy, and Dickie Knowles is one of those who gets up. Liriano, the switch-hitting second baseman. It's a chopper foul, and the count is 0-1. Mark Thurman and Dickie Knowles in the bullpen. Thurman, the left-hander. And what's happening with the Tigers, it's pretty interesting. Henneman's their main man right now, but he's pitched 5 innings in 2 days, and Sparky Anderson saying before the game he could use him maybe for an inning, maybe. And Hernandez has had a real rough year. So it's Knowles and Thurman at the moment. 1-1. This could get very interesting as we proceed here.
Well, what could happen is that Sparky will say you are really managed differently than what he talked about in the interview. He might manage for tomorrow if the situation presents itself.
Precisely. Two and 1 the count.
Well, also that pass ball or wild pitch, I believe it was a wild pitch that allowed the runner to get down to first. What it does is it makes Tanana throw more pitches, so that's going to affect him in the 8th and 9th inning.
2-1 is grounded to short. Trammell to Whitaker. Tanana works out of it. No runs, 1 hit, and the frustrated Blue Jays leave 2 more. They stranded 7.
Charlie Moore makes it close. As we said, a former right fielder with the Brewers can run very well for a catcher. Just barely got him for the 3rd out.
And a chorus of Take Me.
I'm Woodsy Owl, and I'm here to tell you about a dirty word, pollution.
Help Woodsy spread the word. Never be a dirty.
Top second. That's the way it looked at 3:30. Look at where the shadow line was. And then at 4 o'clock, it looked like that. And then at about 4:30 Eastern time, that was the scene. And now live at 10 past 5, roughly, as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning. 1-0 Detroit. Larry Herndon's 2nd inning home run is the difference in the game, and Alan Trammell to lead off for the Tigers. 1-0 the count. Trammell, Herndon, and Lemon. Jimmy Key missing. 2-0.
Orge in at third base. The reason he's in is because Trammell bunted earlier in the ball game. He ought to be back in his position. There's no way in a 1-run ball game in the 7th inning Trammell's going to be bunting again.
Where'd that miss? 3-0.
Sometimes that's the advantage, and he might be the MVP. Maybe. But sometimes that's the advantage of laying down a bunt. Even though you make it out, you put all sorts of thoughts in fielders' mind.
And that's ball 4. So Trammell draws a leadoff walk in the bottom of the 7th, and Larry Herndon comes to the plate. Jimmy Williams unhappy over Barnett's calls. You can't directly argue a ball and strike or you'd be thrown out of the game, but you let him know something.
questions if you're Sparky Anderson. Trammell can run. 21 out of 23 attempts for stolen bases. Probably be more if he hadn't had the groin pull and the little bit of a hamstring problem.
And now Herndon is ahead in the count, so that negates the pitch out for the most part. It takes a lot of courage to pitch out and run the count to 2-0. Here comes Jimmy Williams out to talk about that.
And they shuffle around in the Blue Jay bullpen. And the forgotten man, Tom Henke, who has not pitched since last Sunday. And the reason is that Williams likes Henke to work normally when they have the lead, and exclusively, in fact, when they have the lead. But there's no lead to protect if you don't win this one.
Well, I asked him yesterday with the bases loaded, instead of bringing in Eichhorn, did you ever think about bringing in Henke? Didn't want to even talk to me about it. Well, I said, not to second guess you, but did you ever think about bringing him in just to get out of the inning and then go with one of the other pitchers?
That's a question he had to answer a lot yesterday.
I understood that.
One ball, no strikes the count. Trammell at first base with nobody out in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Again, he goes with his strength, which is the sinker. As Timmy said early, tailor-made, just a couple of hops to Liriano, and then Manny Lee's arm takes care of the rest. Again, the sidearm delivery, making sure that Trammell gets down.
2 down, and Lemon is the batter. Fouled away. What's interesting with Jimmy Key, only 3 Tigers have hit the ball in the air today. Gibson, a soft pop-up in the 1st. Heath fouled out in the 5th. And then the one mistake, and that's the ball game right now. Herndon's home run. Everything else has been on the ground. There's a swinging bunt.
That's a bad play. 2 out, nobody on. You're bunting, really leaving it up to the next guy to get the extra base hit. Bad play. Especially when you have the power that Chet Lemon has. He's got 20 home runs. You're in the best hitting part, among the best hitting parks in baseball, and you're going to bunt 2 out, nobody on, no way.
And then dive headfirst into first base, right? Lemon goes down on strikes, and that's the end of the 7th inning. We go to the 8th. Mosby will start it off 1-0 Detroit. Briefly for the record, here's what we have in the NFL. Steelers win over Atlanta. Indianapolis destroys Buffalo. Tampa Bay knocks off Detroit. Cleveland beats New England. San Diego beats the Bengals. Bears rout Philly. New Orleans routs the Rams. And Washington beats St. Louis. Any upsets? You tell me.
Unconfirmed report, also only 4,900 here in Detroit. Yep. And it's not necessarily because the Tigers are playing.
As we start the 8th inning, Mosby singles to right field. And the new right fielder getting the ball back in is Scott Luceda, who takes over for Herndon. So Mosby with a single, tying run at first with nobody out, and Mosby with good speed, 38 steals. Bell is the batter. And it's Thurmond in the bullpen and Knowles. Mosby had 3 steals yesterday. 1-0.
You can see how Tanana just quickens his motion with a runner on base. Now that is going to change your control a little bit unless you work on it in between, which I'm sure he has. But if you throw one way, and a guy like Mosby, and you're looking around him right now, he's only been thrown out 7 times. So 38 steals, only 7 caught stealings. It's a make you try to get to the plate a little bit quicker, and then you have a guy at the plate that's hit 47 home runs.
In the air to center field as Tanana changed speeds enough to get Bell out in front, and Lemon makes the catch. So the Tigers are 5 outs away from the East, and Benitez is the hitter.
Again, just knowing a fastball is going to come, and what do you get? The changeup, and where is it? Right on the corner. Reached for it, left shoulder, it pulled out. You'll make a lunge swing, and the result is a fly ball, a weak fly ball to center field.
Benitez struck out and grounded out twice
to the left side, and after 3 at-bats, that's really what you don't want to have. We talked about your approach earlier in the game. If you're going to make, as a right-handed hitter, an out against Tanana, you would prefer it to be made on the right side of the field, because then your approach is right. And now it's ideal. Benitez can go the other way, and with Evans holding Mosby at first, it's an ideal time to try to find the hole on the right side.
Again, what it makes you do as a hitter is stay back. You have to make contact. You hit and run, start the runner. You have a guy that can handle the bat, hits the ball, as you said, very well to right field. And make him a better hitter.
And hitting and pitching's adjusting, too. And big league hitters, and the reason Benitez has been around so long and done such a good job, is he can adjust.
And he runs up to bunt and takes high, ball 2.
Some adjustment. There again, it's not quite as bad as Chet Lemon trying to bunt with 2 out and nobody on, because you do move Mosby into scoring position. But the thinking behind things is you're leaving it up to the next guy. And here it is, the last game of the season, maybe 5 outs away for Detroit winning it, and to leave it up to the next guy is the wrong approach.
The next guy is Barfield in this instance. Mosby is at first, 1 out, 8th inning, 1-0 Detroit. Mosby goes, it's low, the throw is not in time. Decent jump, and he outran it. 39 steals for Mosby.
It's not a great jump, but as you said, you can see what speed can do. Tanana holds him close. Heath makes a good throw, a little bit high. Mosby's going to be in safe anyway.
Looked like he started to slide about halfway to second.
Well, if you're going fast enough, you can get all the way to the base, Tom.
I never quite understood that.
Now the 3-0 pitch is a strike, and it's 3-1. Mosby at second. The count, 1 out. In the air to deep right field, but Lusader backs up and makes the catch, and Mosby tags late on his way and beats Trammell's relay. And Tanana backing up on the play alertly. So Benitez hits it hard, but Lusader is there, and then Mosby had to dart back, tag, and race to third. So he's 90 feet away, and Barfield comes up.
And it does change the complexion. And we've seen a couple of wild pitches as you watch Lloyd tag up. Strong throw from Scott Luke. You see Trammell cut it off and make the relay. Kind of a tentative relay because he doesn't want to throw the ball away. But what it does, it takes away the curveball. And we've seen a couple of curveballs bounce. We've seen a couple of pass balls, wild pitches. You just get the ball up a little bit when you throw the breaking ball.
Barfield takes a strike.
Of course, Tanana has a number of options. There's that great changeup, which we saw right there.
that Missouri fastball right there that show me that's about it. He's not going to get a fastball to hit inside. The purpose for that pitch was to throw a ball so he could go back out there with the changeup.
Squibber. Tanana has it. And they're 3 outs away. He went back out with the changeup. And Sparky Anderson is 3 outs away from going to the playoffs for the 7th time as a manager.
Appreciate your fan support.
To the bottom of the 8th we go.
When the Michigan battles Lorenzo White at Michigan State or Arizona State at Washington. Coverage begins with college football today, Saturday on ABC Sports.
To the bottom of the 8th inning at Tiger Stadium in Detroit. Detroit's finest making their presence known as they ring the field. The brooms are out, and this would be the sweetest of sweeps because it would win the East. It's 1-0 Tigers. Bottom of the 8th, Evans, Morrison, and Heath. Jimmy Key has made one mistake today. 0-1. Herndon's home run is the difference. When the Blue Jays bat in the 9th inning, 6, 7, and 8, the spots occupied by Cecil Fielder, Manny Lee, and Garth Orge. Not where Williams wants to be in his lineup.
This game certainly does dredge up emotions. I remember back in '74, one bad pitch. It was the Sal Bando. It really wasn't a bad pitch. 3-2 fastball, solo home run in the playoffs. 1-0 loss. You just never really think that that one home run is going to beat you. And usually it doesn't.
Especially at Tiger Stadium.
Well, going back to the '84 playoffs, the great Milt Wilcox and Charlie Lebrand. 1-0 to get the Tigers into the World Series.
And Evans has gone on strikes. I can't imagine that Jimmy Key has pitched more than a handful of better games in his career than today. But will this ever be sour if they don't score in the 9th? Key has given up 3 hits, 2 singles to Whitaker, and the Herndon homer. Jim Morrison, 1-0.
It's a good statement about this ballpark. Timmy mentioned the 225 home runs. In most ballparks, with the exception of Fenway, that is an out. Fly ball high, hit high to left, and usually the left fielder comes in and catches that. Here in Tiger Stadium, it's a solo home run, which has put the Tigers in a, seems like a commanding lead the way Tanana's pitching. These things have a way of changing rather dramatically.
3-0 the count.
You have to be very careful with Jim Morrison. You know, he likes the ball up out of the plate, home run power. He's tried to stay out of that area and hasn't been able to do that. As Keys knows, the way that Toronto is hitting, he cannot afford to give up any more runs.
And for that reason, with the bottom part of the order coming up, Mike Heath on deck, I'm surprised he was taken all the way there.
3-1. Anderson also has Henneman now up in the bullpen. Mike Henneman can give him an inning. He worked 2 innings in relief Friday and then 3 innings yesterday to get the win. And he's the closer, and there he is. And Sparky can't afford to wait to get Henneman up in the 9th inning. So he's got him up now in the bottom of the 8th, just in case. And Morrison goes down swinging. 7 strikeouts for Jimmy Key. 2 gone. And here's Heath. Heath 0 for 2. Strike. The Tigers, generally a consensus 4th or 5th place pick in preseason, as the bat winds up in the area of Orge. 0-2. The Blue Jays, who had a 3.5 game lead after last Saturday's confrontation with Detroit, and they were 3 outs away from a 4.5 game lead. But then Gibson hit the home run. The Tigers won the game in extra innings. And now that collective look tells you all you need to know. Heath is down on strikes, and Jimmy Key pitches a masterpiece. But what does it all mean? To the 9th, 1-0 Tigers. In Detroit, Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, and Tim McCarver, 51,005. 3rd largest in Tiger history looking on and ready to do some celebrating. 1-0 Detroit, and for the Blue Jays, their 6, 7, and 8 hitters due up. Fielder, Lee, and Orge, 3 part-time players. The one thing about Fielder, good power. He has 14 home runs in 174 at-bats.
Tanana struck him out the last time on a fastball inside, but the first 2 times he hit the ball hard, once to right and then a base hit to left. One of the few Toronto hitters that has really seemed to adjust. Last time Tanana just outpitched him, made a great pitch on the inside corner for the strikeout. Let's see what he does here.
Strike. Buffett checking the bullpen. Thurman and Henneman. 1-1.
If you're a right-handed hitter, you're up there thinking that he's not going to throw you a pitch to hit on the inside part of the plate. You got to think away, which means the opposite way.
It was a little squiver off to the right side. Mike thought it might have been a pop-up.
Pitchers and catchers are trained to get beat. If you're going to get beat with your best. And his best has been the changeup away and the curveball away.
2-2.
The only time he has come in with a fastball is when he's had 2 strikes and been way ahead in the count. 2-2. Of course, you never know with Frank Tanana. He's just mixed him up so well today that it's almost like he's like a chameleon. He can change his color depending on what the situation is.
3-2.
You can read the pitches that Tanana's going to throw, at least the changeup, by the way Heath holds his glove. When he holds it down towards the dirt, it's going to be a changeup. Now, Rick Dempsey used to do that. It's a giveaway, but obviously Toronto hasn't picked it up. As a hitter, it's kind of difficult to look behind you.
3-2. strikeouts. Manny Lee. One and oh to draw Morrison in.
How fast do you think that fastball looked after 5 consecutive breaking balls? About 100 miles per hour?
Yeah, right.
Always been a survivor. Went through 6 losing seasons. Adjusted.
And he's trying to do it in his hometown.
Surviving's one thing. Being picked up by the Queen Mary is quite another. Doing more than surviving today, I'll tell you.
2-1 pitch. 2-2. One out, bases empty, or John Deck. 1-0 Detroit. Chopper to Morrison. Scooped by Evans. Two down, Orge is the batter. Little squibber, and the Tigers face the quitter. belongs to Frank Tanana and Larry Herndon. Next stop, Minneapolis. Detroit wins the East. Another look now, and appropriately, it's Frank Tanana who's involved in the final out. And the Detroit Tigers beat the Toronto Blue Jays 1-0 to sweep the series and win the American League East. Next stop, Minneapolis. Playoffs open Wednesday night at the Metrodome. Frank Tanana is with us. Frank, congratulations, and just share your thoughts with us at the moment right now.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Thank you very much.
Share your thoughts right now with us.
Well, you know, my thoughts right now is that I'm so very thankful. First of all, I'd like to give the praise and all the glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I'm just so excited for, you know, not only myself, but all the guys that I played with. We've just battled all year long and have played great ball and got contributions from really the whole team.
What sort of feeling did you have as you came to the ballpark today?
Well, I'll tell you, right after church, it was just the feeling that I knew what I wanted to do. I've had good success against Toronto, and it was just a matter of, I think the twilight helped. It had a pretty good sinker screwball.
Frank, have you ever had to pitch a bigger game?
Well, you know, Jim, when you get my age, everyone's the big game. Because when you stink, you're done. You know what I mean?
Yes, I can relate to that. Let me ask you a question. When you had the problems, you had about 7 or 8 starts where you struggled. What got you back on track?
Well, I'll tell you, Billy told me 2 or 3 starts before it sunk into my head that I really had gotten into a bad habit of throwing too much across my body. My curveball was flat, and it took away really a lot of movement. So I moved my arm over the top, and it was really a mechanical thing.
Did you throw a harder pitch today than the 3-2 fastball to Fielder in the 9th inning?
I don't know how he missed it. I don't think it was that hard, but I think the shadows got him. It might have registered 78. That was it. But then again, you're right. That probably was the hardest pitch all day.
But that was kind of your game plan, right? I mean, to stay away from the right-handed hitters with a lot of changeups and curveballs and show them something inside off the plate.
Well, that's really my style. That's the way I'm going to pitch, and you got to go with what got you here, and that's the way we did it. And boy, I'll tell you, Toronto, you know, they've got nothing to be ashamed of. They're a great club, and somebody had to win it and somebody had to lose it. But boy, I'd really like to pay tribute to them. They had a great year.
Chemistry is an overused word, but it's one that Sparky loves to describe the success of this ball club. How do you put it into words?
Well, I'll tell you, I just a contribution, no stars. Full team effort, a lot of character. You know, they buried us before the season started. They buried us after we opened up 11-19. But no, Sparky did, and he did a great job of managing, and, you know, everybody contributed. Nobody got down, and, you know, it's cliches, but that was so true. Everybody pulled hard, and, you know, this is what happens.
Well, the Tigers won it by a score of 1-0, and then it's on to the playoffs. And has Sparky indicated to you, final question, Frank, which game you would pitch in the playoffs?
No. We were probably, he was worried about today, knew who was going to throw tomorrow, and I think he'll just sit down and work out that in the near future.
But we might be looking at you in game 4 the way it looks right now.
Well, just give me the ball. I go when he tells me, Frank, it's your turn.
Frank,
I think you're liable to get it, too.
Excuse me, Al. Frank, I've seen you pitch 2 times. You pitched the Monday night game. You shut him out 3-0. You won today 1-0. You're on your own in the playoffs because we don't do the.
Well,
you won't say it's still the World Series.
I'll tell you what, if you're not busy, I'll just fly you in, Jim.
Okay.
Frank, congratulations.
Well, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. Frank Tanana, the man of the moment, the man of the hour in Motown, where the Tigers win the East, and will return to Tiger Stadium in just a moment. Another look now at the final out. Frank Tanana fielding the little ground ball off to the right of the mound, and then over to Evans for the out that wraps it up as Tanana goes all the way, his 5th complete game in 34 starts. And the reaction at the end, I know I was looking at Sparky Anderson when we punched up the shot of Sparky. He's a man who is used to winning. He's a man who was thrilled as a 36-year-old rookie manager to win his first pennant in 1970. He looked very impassive from the outside, but that's because he's been a manager for a long time. But I think in his heart of hearts, this is probably as satisfying as any of the championships he's won.
Sparky Anderson coming over from the Cincinnati Reds, and the interesting thing about his early years here in Detroit, he had a 5-year plan, and most of the time you use 5-year plans to negotiate as a baseball manager. He made it on time. I mean, he won it in 1984 and the little down period in 85 and 86, but as Jim brought out, they won 87 ball games last year. They're a fine club.
What Frank Tanana said makes this year so much more important is the fact that everybody picked him to finish 4th or 5th, and they were able to win. And the style that they did, it was an exciting year for them because they scored so many runs, hit so many home runs, and obviously it's exciting for everybody here in Detroit.
And he had a nice blend too, and when you go back and you look at what was happening here in the winter, not only were they in jeopardy of losing Parrish, and they subsequently did with land signing with Philadelphia, but it's also worth bringing up at this point, Jack Morris wanted to go elsewhere. So there was the possibility they wouldn't have Morris. They wouldn't have Parrish. They had a lot of question marks. They had a lot of guys a little long in the tooth. Darrell Evans forced to take the pay cut, but he was able to blend everybody together.
And had you told the Pirates that they would have won back in April, they would have thought probably that Willie Hernandez would have been a big part of, and not realizing that Henneman would have been the guy that they would have called on the last series of the year when they had to win games.
What makes Sparky Anderson so amazing in my eyes is he said, I looked at Mike Henneman, who ended up being 12-3. He said, I saw that he had no fear in his eyes in spring training. I knew he'd do the job. Now, of course, that's after he's won, 12 out of 15 decisions. But Sparky, I mean, perfect example is the way he used Scott Lusader. And you talked about Kirk Gibson with a big home run to keep him from being swept up in Toronto last weekend. Lusader hits a 2-run home run the other night when they're down 3 runs early in the ball game to make it 3-2, give them a chance, and they come back and win that ball game, and it changes the whole complexion of the way they went into the last 2 ball games. So he's an amazing guy. He takes chances. He's a great guy to be around, and he's been successful again.
On the other hand, it's a shame to look at the Toronto Blue Jays season as a 155-game season. They lost the last 7 ball games, and I'm sure that's what people will remember when they played 5 months of Super Baseball.
No question about it, to end the year with a 7-game losing streak. And the Gibson home run was the hit. I mean, that's what did it, because if they lose that game, the difference between 2.5 and 4.5 going into that final week might have been too much to overcome. And then, of course, the other big home run would be the one that took place earlier today in the 2nd inning. And if you missed it, this is all of the scoring in the game. And oddly, on a day on which Jimmy Key got every Tiger outside of 3 to hit the ball on the ground or struck them out. 2 pop-ups and this.
And no pun intended, but that was certainly the key hit in the ball game, and that was it.
And I can't imagine Jimmy Key pitching very many better games than he did today, but it's one that he'll never forget for another reason. So Detroit wins it by a score of 1-0 on the final day of the regular season, and we'll be back in a moment.
Let's talk your policy.
We've traveled millions of miles, and it's been our delight to bring you all the sports that make you feel right. Yeah, diving in, get down, skating stars, the best are coming around. Backstage, motor down, catch the grace. We're having just a real good time. Everybody have fun tonight. ABC Sports reaching new heights. Everybody shifting gears, that's right. ABC Sports reaching new heights. Everybody have fun tonight. ABC Sports reaching new heights.
These two teams met 7 times, and another thing to remember over the last week and a half of the season, all 7 games were decided by 1 run. So this in itself was a fabulous head-to-head confrontation. 1-0 the final score today. And one other thing that we haven't touched on is by winning today and not having to play tomorrow, Sparky Anderson has his rotation perfectly set up now for Minnesota.
He certainly does. He can start Doyle Alexander, who we talked about earlier. 11 starts for the Tigers, was 9-0 with an incredible 1.63 ERA, and then he can follow with Jack Morris, who pitched an outstanding game and won 18 games, and then come back with Walt Terrell with the day after the day off, who's 11-0 here at Tiger Stadium. So it does set up for him, but they are playing a team that has played very well lately, Minnesota. Of course, they're in the other league, so to speak, only 85 wins, I believe, but it's going to be a good playoff series.
Well, speaking of the other league, what about the Giants and the Cardinals? I guess the Giants will probably go in as slight favorites over the Cardinals, depending on whether Jack Clark and Willie McGee are healthy or not.
And now, of course, we're into that best of 7, which started in 1985. So in terms of home field advantage, the Cardinals would have it in the National League, games 1, 2, 6, and 7 if need be. The home field advantage in the American League could be very significant because the Twins would have the extra game at home, and they have been terrific under the dome.
Well, they have, and they also have that one ingredient they have not had in the past, and that is a stopper, and Jeff Reardon has had a fantastic year with well over 30 saves.
They certainly have one of the better stoppers in baseball, but I think their main concern now are starters.
Right.
Because probably of the 4 division champions, their starting staff is the weakest of the 4.
Okay, it's time to predict now. Who do you like in the National League, Jim?
San Francisco.
Who do you like in the American?
Detroit.
I concur.
I do too. That's interesting. So you can count on St. Louis and Minnesota in the World Series.
Right.
That's where we'll be. That's where we will be.
Probably go to the bank on it. But I think it's interesting too that, and we mentioned before that we'll have the World Series for you beginning a week from Saturday. Exclusive coverage here on ABC. But you had 4 teams that a lot of people just didn't figure would be there at the end, or the 4 that get to the party, as it were.
The Mets were picked in the National League East. The Yankees, Toronto, naturally. Some people probably still think Toronto's the best team in baseball. After all, they did win 96 ball games, second only to the Tigers.
I felt that way back in '85, but this year, in '85, they got beat by a good pitching staff with Kansas City, who eventually went on to win the World Series. But this year, it sounds like it might be shallow words, but the injuries really hurt them.
Yep.
That's
same thing with the Mets, as a matter of fact, with the pitching staff of the Mets. But the Cardinals overcame so many things. John Tudor, they lose. They lose Jack Clark for the last month. So injuries part of the games this year as much a part of the season as anything.
And the Giants as well. Well, the 1987 World Series begins a week from Saturday. And we'll be with you for all of the action here on ABC. Al Michaels along with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. That's the story from Detroit. And ABC's Sunday Afternoon Baseball has been produced by Kurt Gowdy Jr., directed by Craig Janoff, our technical director, Chet Mazurek. Robbie Cowan is our associate director, Tony Versley, our technical manager, our unit managers, Peter Grimm and Trish Sellery, telecommunications manager, Jim Licata, Michael Cohn and Nancy Stern, the assistants to the producer, our statistician, Alan Roth, and our researcher was Peter Hurd. ABC Sunday Afternoon Baseball has been brought to you by Michelob. So exceptionally smooth, the night belongs to Michelob. By the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. And by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. ABC's Monday Night Football is back tomorrow, we think, as the 49ers take on the Giants at the Meadowlands. We'll be with you live at 9 Eastern tomorrow night here on ABC. Stay tuned next for your local news and ABC's World News Sunday.
He has been paid to ABC by United Airlines, rededicated to giving you the service you deserve. Come fly the friendly skies.
I really enjoy reading, especially when it's a good review.
Sunday is the Dynamite Night on Dolly with special guests Bert, Alabama, and Whoopi. It's Dolly.
Then, don't you ever get tired of playing the Lone Ranger?
Dennis Weaver is Buck James. Following Dolly's